The Nixon Shock. Why 1971 still shapes your paycheck and retirement in 2025. When you look at your paycheck today, there's a silent tax already inside it. The dollars you earn buy less year after year. That erosion isn't accidental. It traces back to one Sunday night in August 1971, when President Richard Nixon ended the dollar's tie to gold.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets.
What he called a temporary measure created the fiat money system we still live under. If you're just starting out in your 20s, it explains why you can't sit on cash. If you're in your 40s or 50s, it explains why catching up for retirement feels harder than it did for your parents. Let's break it down. After World War II, the US dollar was the anchor of the Bretton Woods system. Every major currency was pegged to the dollar, and the dollar was pegged to gold at $35 an ounce. That made trade predictable and currencies stable. The US was running massive spending programs, the Vietnam War, the Great Society, and foreign governments started to doubt whether America could keep redeeming dollars for gold. France literally sent ships to New York to claim gold bars. On August 15, 1971, Nixon went on television and suspended gold convertibility. At the same time, he froze wages and prices for 90 days and slapped a surcharge on imports. Markets were stunned. Economists later called it the Nixon Shock. For the first time in modern history, the world's reserve currency was backed only by government promise and central bank credibility. Money was no longer a claim on metal. It became a claim on policy. A dollar in 1971 has the buying power of about 13 cents today. In other words, your parents' grocery bill, their college tuition, their rent, all look absurdly low because money was allowed to lose value. This is why every generation after 1971 feels like it's running to stand still. In a gold system, discipline came from the metal itself. After 1971, discipline comes from the Federal Reserve and other central banks. Interest rates, balance sheets, quantitative easing, all of this was only possible because money floats. Exchange rates now move daily. A strong or weak dollar filters into the price of oil, travel, imports, even the competitiveness of entire industries. For ordinary people, that volatility shows up in everything from the price of gasoline to the purchasing power of your retirement account. With no gold anchor, governments could expand credit, debt, and liquidity. New financial instruments, treasuries, derivatives, FX swaps, emerged to stabilize what gold used to. That's why today your 401k isn't just a savings plan. It's a direct bet on how central banks and markets manage this system. You've entered adulthood in a world where the rules were rewritten before you were born. If you're just starting your career, here's what that means. Time is your only true hedge. Inflation compounds against you, so you need assets that compound faster. That means equities, index funds, and global diversification. Cash in a checking account is a melting ice cube. Debt compounds faster than you think. In a fiat system, credit cards are designed to make you the asset. At 20% interest, you're the bank's gold mine. Eliminate high-interest debt first. Constitutional advantages. Employer 401k matches, Roth IRAs, HSAs. These are deliberate policy tools to channel savings into markets. If you ignore them, you're surrendering free leverage. Understand cycles. When the Fed cuts rates, borrowing is cheap. Asset prices tend to rise. When they hike, loans bite and valuations compress. Learn to recognize cycles. You don't need to predict them, just respect them. If you're in your 40s or 50s, you've already felt the system's weight. You might be behind on retirement savings or carrying debt that won't vanish on its own. Here's how to fight back. Maximize tax-advantaged contributions. The IRS literally gives you higher contribution limits once you turn 50. Use them. Shift toward preservation, but don't abandon growth. A 60-40 portfolio or target date fund is a rational glide path, but longevity risk means you still need equities. Avoid swinging to all bonds or cash. Unexpected expenses can show up during retirement, so maintaining investments with liquidity ensures not just continued growth, but also access whenever you need it. Inflation protection is non-negotiable. Instead of building all cash reserves, add a slice of tips or commodities. Gold may not yield, but when central banks themselves are net buyers, it tells you something about hedging policy risk. As high-interest debt. According to U.S. Government Accountability Office, over 70% of adults over 50 are carrying debt, but the implications vary by debt type. Entering retirement with a mortgage at 5% is one thing. Entering with credit cards at 20%, tax debt, high-ratio mortgage or payday loans is a death sentence. Instead, manage the debt with refinancing if the rates have lowered since you first purchased your mortgage. If house loan is your biggest financial threat in retirement, look into options like home equity line of credit, HELOC, a second mortgage, or reverse mortgage. If everything else fails, your last and best options would be debt settlement after negotiating with creditors. However, keep in mind that this will require having access to cash for the agreed-upon settlement payment, and it could negatively impact your credit score. Your next final option would be debt consolidation, which will combine multiple debts into one single loan with one monthly payment and one interest payment. Delaying Social Security increases benefits by 8% per year past full retirement age. Think of it as the last guaranteed real return you can engineer in the system. The Nixon Shock wasn't just a policy tweak. It was the moment the global economy abandoned metal for trust. It created permanent inflation, central bank dominance, and markets as the new foundation of wealth. If you're young, your defense is time, compounding, and discipline. If you're older, your defense is financial restructuring, debt relief, and hedging. The gold window closed in 1971, but the window for financial stability is still open if you understand the system we inherited that day.